Hello and welcome to Rays of Hope. I'm your host, Amy Clevidence, and I'll be your host for today's show. On today's show, we'll be talking about response to sexual violence, and we'll also be talking about preventative education strategies that are taking place at the Purchase Area Sexual Assault and Child Advocacy Center. A person's response to sexual violence can be likened to a person's response to falling down a flight of stairs, and that no two individuals are going to react the same way. If you surveyed a group of people who've fallen down a flight of stairs, you'll find that injuries vary. Some people's injuries are severe, broken bones, severe strains, while other people may just simply be embarrassed by the fall. These are the people that get up off the floor just as quickly as they fell down those stairs, and they go on about their lives as if nothing's happened. Of these people, some may find that days or even weeks later that their bodies are sore, their necks are stiff, they may have bruising that they didn't recognize before, and these people may not recognize that these symptoms are a result of that flight down the stairs. Survivors of sexual assault are similar. Some, they just get on with their lives as if nothing's ever happened, and then weeks go by and maybe months, and they start to recognize that they have some emotional difficulties, some psychological injuries that they don't tie back to that incident of sexual assault. It's very hard to explain why people they feel embarrassed when they fall down a flight of stairs. After all, this is an incident that can happen to anybody. Similarly, it's hard to explain why someone feels embarrassed when they've been assaulted. Again, that is something that could happen to anybody. Perhaps we feel embarrassed because these incidents expose our vulnerabilities. Or perhaps we're just uncomfortable with the attention that it attracts. After all, people do notice. There are people that are going to rush to our aid at the time of our incident. There are going to be people that show concern and worry for us. Some people pretend not to notice, while others may even point and laugh. It's the reaction to sexual assault that's been on our minds lately at PASAC. And here with me today to talk about those reactions and what we're doing to try to standardize the community's response to violence is Angie York. Angie is the Crisis Response Specialist for the Purchase Area Sexual Assault and Child Advocacy Center. Angie, thank you for being with us today. Some of our viewers are going to remember you as our Preventative Education Director. Talk to us a little bit about your new role as a Crisis Response Specialist.
Okay, thanks for having me, Amy. It's been an interesting summer for me. I have gone from working with the youth in all of our 8 purchase counties to now working with more of an adult set of people, or a volunteer set of people. And what I guess how that looks for me is basically I work with our victims from the second they present at the hospital, and I rally around the team of people that help them, that come to the hospital to help them, that work on their whole process from the time they get to the hospital till they get to the center, where we can help them with therapy and kind of turn them over to our therapists at that point. But my job basically consists of keeping those volunteers in line, so we know who's supposed to be working for what hospital. My job also now involves working with a SART team. And then we have to also train law enforcement, train medical personnel. There are lots of people in the community who need lots of education still, even though it's not in the realm of kiddos anymore. Now it's adults, but there's lots of people still that I'll be educating just as a crisis response specialist instead of an educator.
I think that some of our viewers would be surprised to hear that a crisis responder is an everyday person out in our community. These are volunteer positions, and while they're certainly backed by our staff members with the specialties with sexual assault and violence, our core team is just your average Joe. So what do you look for in a volunteer to be a crisis responder?
Well, to be a crisis responder, we actually do that in 2 different ways. We have our crisis line, which can be someone who stays at home or has your cell phone with you, and when we have a caller, we have a victim who calls in and just needs somebody to talk to, you can answer that phone from wherever you are, and you can help de-escalate their situation and help them make a safety plan. So to do that, you have to be 20 years old, and you have to have some specialized training, which I also do. Usually we do that at our Paducah office. But then the other major kind of volunteer, I guess, that we use would be our medical volunteers, and they advocate on behalf of the victim at the hospital. So they would actually have to leave their house when the hospital calls them. If they're not on call, the hospital will call their phone number, tell them, we have a victim presented at whichever hospital they're on call for that night, and they would actually go to the hospital and work with the victim there to help them understand their rights and help them understand what's happening to them, the process that's happening while they're at the hospital. So to do that, you also have to be 20, and of course that does require some specialized training as well. We don't want to just let you loose trying to work with victims when you don't really understand maybe how they feel or how they think, and so we give you those skills before you go and are first dealing with the victims.
You mentioned SART. What exactly is SART and why is that important?
Well, SART teams are something that traditionally we have not had in the Purchase area. A SART team is a sexual assault response team. So that involves basically the Rape Crisis Center advocate, the nurses and the doctors at the hospital, the law enforcement who come in to investigate that crime, and then prosecutors who will eventually take that crime to court. So these people basically will come together and work together in individual counties to rally around that victim, and they will push that case through from the very beginning of collecting evidence until it ends up being prosecuted in court, and we have the outcome from the trial.
So it sounds like county by county then we're looking for a very standardized response to victims, so that we're starting to establish an idea of knowing what to expect at the time violence occurs throughout the process, so that we're standardizing our level of care. Would that be accurate?
Yes, absolutely. And we actually work with 6 hospitals, and they're not all run by the same people. So you can imagine that everyone is different, and so that makes our job a little bit more difficult as well. But we're going to work through that, and that's going to be part of my role in this first year of taking over this job. Would be to get that standardization across all 6 of our hospitals.
Wonderful. I would say that there's some specialized training then that has to happen from a professional perspective, both law enforcement and sounds like healthcare. Is that training that we provide?
Absolutely. So I will be doing some training of my own, learning how to facilitate and teach our medical personnel and work with our law enforcement. We have had lots of changes with the laws in the last couple of years on as far as what we used to call a rape kit, which sounds kind of harsh. Now that's all been changed. We call that a SAFE exam, and that's a sexual assault forensic exam. It's still the same thing, but boy, it sounds so much better to hear SAFE exam. So we're going to be really working on teaching what protocol is, what policy is around the rape kits, around housing those kits. It used to be that you had to prosecute if a rape kit was done, and that's not the way it is now. You can have up to 90 days. You can go ahead and collect that evidence the day of the assault, and we have places that we can now store that inside the hospital or with local law enforcement. And if you decide in 30 days or 60 days that yes, you do want to prosecute, we have that evidence. We have a plan for keeping it stored. So there's a lot of training to do with our medical personnel and law enforcement around how that will all play out.
Is there a fee associated to this training?
No, everything we do is free. So we are really good, thanks to Amy, really good at writing grants and finding money to be able to train these folks and get them in, and so they're not out money out of their pocket to get these trainings.
And if there was a law enforcement personnel or a member of the medical community that's interested in learning more, how would they go about scheduling a training?
Well, the first thing would just be contact us at the center. Let us know you're interested. We try to accommodate as much as we can on your terms and your facility. Work around. I'm more than willing to work at night or on the weekend if that makes the best sense for, getting your staff. I know a lot of times our hospital staff, they work 12-hour shifts, and sometimes they start at 6 or 7 in the morning, and they, don't get off till 6 or 7 at night. So however we need to do that to make it work, I'm more than willing. So just a phone call to the center, we can get that started.
I've been very interested lately in learning about how we're interfacing with emerging nurses, individuals that are currently in a nursing program, and they seem very interested in becoming a SANE nurse. Those credentials are something that help them in our local hospital, so it seems like it's a benefit for everyone. Can you talk about what a SANE nurse is and why they're important to have in a hospital? Yeah,
our discussion today will definitely, I think, point out the people like me who are acronym challenged. Everything that we do has an acronym, but a SANE nurse, we say that SANE, that's a sexual assault nurse examiner. So they're actually specialized nurses who have been through a training to help them know better how to collect forensic evidence. So they have just gone through, usually there's some classwork involved, like some classroom time involved, and then they have to actually go out and watch an exam being done, and just, have to go into court and watch a trial where a sane nurse has had to get on the stand and talk so that they understand the implications of, once you do this exam, you may have to go to court. So there's lots of things involved in that, but we're making that process easier by actually working with nursing schools in our area and going into their classrooms, and hopefully by spring we'll be able to offer them training in their classroom where they don't have to go somewhere else and have it or pay someone else to do it. We'll be able to do that for them free.
And what a benefit that is to a hospital to know that at any given time there would be someone with the expertise to be able to best handle a patient who presents with sexual assault. And what a benefit too for the patient to know that they're in good hands with people who can confidently execute that exam.
That's right.
Now let's switch gears a little bit and talk about the world you left behind. You are our Director of Education, and preventative education I know is something that's in your gut. It's very important to you. So let's talk about the future of that department. The Green Dot program was something that was a major initiative for you. Will that be continuing?
It will. We are actually 2 full years into a 5-year experiment where we are testing the Green Dot program. And it's a bystander intervention program that teaches students ways that they can intervene when they see someone being sexually assaulted. It also teaches them proactive ways that they can get involved in the movement and try to, spread the word about how anyone can help to stop sexual violence. So that basically looks like this. We had our state coalition, KSAP, another acronym for you, Kentucky Association of Sexual Assault Programs. They received a grant from the Center for Disease Control to run this 5-year experiment along with help from UK researchers. And they enlisted the help of the 13 rape crisis centers in Kentucky to come together and actually test this. So there are 26 schools involved in this experiment across the state. This has never been done before, which is amazing to me. Unfortunately, in a lot of statistics, Kentucky is falling way behind in the child abuse realm and in the sexual assault realm. And now people are looking at us because we are leading the way in experimenting on how to stop sexual assault. It's really an interesting process.
It's a very interesting process. Sadly, the state of Kentucky ranks first in the number of deaths attributed to child abuse. And so it's so encouraging to me to see that there are high school students that are getting the training to go on and break those cycles of abuse.
Absolutely.
You've hired a new director. I believe we're calling her a prevention education coordinator because her role encompasses other areas. Tell me what else is happening with prevention education. I know we, not just with our pilot school with Green Dot, we're also going into elementary, middle, and high schools to perform preventative education. So how many kids in this Purchase area receive education programming each year? Well,
last year, with the help of a part-time educator, we saw 9,600 kids, or we taught 9,600 kids, and that's a huge number. That's a lot of kiddos who've received some information about sexual assault prevention. So what we're planning on doing for this year, and hopefully you'll get to meet Tracy soon. Tracy Connerton is our new education prevention specialist, but she has also now hired 5 part-time educators who will be working on contract with the center to really, they're going to work mainly in elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools, but they're going to be very specialized. In the past, we have had 8 counties and 2 people, and you just kind of go at it and do the best you can do and get into as many schools as you can. But we have a plan now, and I think this hopefully is going to work great for being able to reach a lot of the schools we couldn't get to in the past. Each of these 5 new educators will have 1 or 2 counties, and they will be specializing in those counties. They'll be working with only schools in those specific counties, and they'll be scheduling, going in, talking to the kids, and hopefully we will see our 9,600 number come up a lot more this year. We'll have a lot of extra hands.
And this was made possible through a grant by the Paducah-McCracken County United Way. We've been very blessed. Is there how many hours will each of these educators be working?
The way this is going to work out, we'll be able to contract for 200 hours per educator, and hopefully as Tracy kind of settles into her new job, she'll have some help, getting school scheduled, so we don't have to have our new educators do that. They're going to be ready just to walk into the school, do the program, and work with those kids, so they don't have a lot of paperwork to do ahead of time and behind the scenes, but they're going to be able to spend their good quality time in the classroom.
That's wonderful. Now I know that prevention education, that's not just something that can be done on a child level. I understand parental involvement is essential. Why do you feel that parental involvement is necessary, and just why do you feel so passionate about prevention education? Why is it so important to you?
Well, If you could spend one day in the office with us, you would understand why this is important. It really doesn't, as my favorite chef Emerald would say, it's not rocket science, people. One day in the office with us, and you would understand when you see these 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old kids come in and talk about the abuse that's happened to them, it makes it real easy to understand why we should prevent this from happening. And sadly, I have had very few schools who try to fix a night where the parents can come, where I can talk to parents. And when that happens, when I can find a school in the past who's been willing to make a parent night, we've had 2 parents, 4 parents, 6 parents show up in schools with 500 or 600 kids. So there is a huge need for parental involvement. It's time that we take the burden off of our children and start as parents talking with them about what's going on, teaching them. You know, we were talked earlier about the Green Dot program. It's a great bystander intervention program, but it's sad that I'm the only person that's teaching it to these kids. Their parents need to be teaching it as well.
That's right. And the statistics are astounding. 1 in 3 girls, 1 in 7 boys will be affected somehow by sexual violence. And it's time that as grown-ups we rally together as a community and try to help overcome that.
Right. And I think that statistic can be misleading. I think some people hear that 1 out of every 3. There's no way that can happen. And when we say that, you have to think about sexual assault as kind of an umbrella. There are lots of different kinds of sexual assault. So when you hear 1 in 3, it doesn't mean 1 out of every 3 people are raped or 1 out of every 3 girls are raped. It means that 1 out of every 3 people are sexually assaulted, and that could be sexual harassment, that can be stalking. There are many different kinds of sexual assault.
And your programming, let's talk a little bit more in detail about that. Your program doesn't just handle the contact aspect of sexual violence. There's a plethora of programmings that you provide. So can you talk a little bit about that? When a child is receiving a piece of education from PASAC, what might they be receiving?
There are lots of different things that we do. I guess probably the one that we hear most frequently from teachers or from school systems, they want to talk about bullying. And of course, in the field, what we know is that most of the time kids bully because something is already happening to them. They're trying to find some way to lash out because they're being affected, whether that's by sexual assault, domestic violence, we don't know. But bullying is something that teachers see frequently in the school, and so we do a lot of programs around that. We also do basic good touch, bad touch programs. And you know, that allows us to start talking with the little kiddos about, you know, the private parts of your body or the parts that are covered by your bathing suit, and that's an easy way for them to understand what parts of their body it's okay for somebody to touch or pat on or love on, and what parts are off limits. We do, in this day and time, we do a lot of internet safety, a lot of texting, a lot of sexting. Our high school kids, middle school kids don't realize, number one, they don't realize a lot of our girls will get 100 texts a day from a guy, and they don't like that guy, and they're telling that guy, leave me alone, but he's still texting 100 times a day. That's stalking. So we have 2 issues going on. We have texting and we have stalking. So there's a lot of new information that we've collected over the past couple of years that have to do with our new technological world.
It's great to see such a well-rounded approach to that prevention. If I'm an educator and I'm interested in adding you to my curriculum, is this something that's going to take up a lot of my classroom time?
No, we take what we can get. That's our motto. We take what we can get. So it might be that you have 30 minutes. You know, typically if we're working with middle school, high school, we can have a class period, and that'll be fine, 45, 55 minutes, whatever you have. But for the elementary school kids, we like about 30 minutes. And of course, they are elementary school kids, so their attention span's not always much longer than that. So we take what we can get. But a simple phone call to the office and talk with Miss Tracy, and she can, you know, get you on the schedule for that.
Fabulous. And it really is a community issue. It requires community involvement. So I'd like now to introduce another guest we have with us today, a member of the community, a member of your volunteer team. And I guess, Dalton, I'd like to introduce you as you are an elementary school student, age 10, student at Jonathan Elementary School in Marshall County. You volunteer with the center, and I guess by introducing you, we want to say to our viewers that there are opportunities for volunteerism with everyone. While you're not 20 and you can't serve on our crisis line, there are a number of things that you can do, just like any other member of our community. Tell me a little bit about how long have you volunteered for PASAC?
4 years now. And besides doing general office work, such as making copies, typing a document, or just general stuff, I recruit government officials for the annual Men Who Cook event, which is a fundraiser for the center each March.
And have you been involved? I know there are cause-related activities that happen in the center. Hospital bags. We provide clothing for victims at hospitals, and I understand you've had some involvement with the hospital bags.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about how that goes.
Well, I spent a few hours on a Friday night stuffing bags and sorting out clothes in different buckets of each size.
And tell me why you volunteer with us.
Well, there's a number of things I do why I volunteer for y'all, but I just like to make a difference.
And during volunteering, I'm sure you see volunteers from all over. So would you say it's something that you think anybody could do?
Yes.
Anyone could get involved with?
Yeah.
And once you get in, it is something that you just have a hard time stepping away from.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a true statement?
Yes. Yes.
Well, I would like to use Dalton for you, our viewers. In closing, just to say that response to sexual violence, it is a community effort. We want to make sure that all of our victims are receiving the best possible care at the time of their unfortunate incident. And the way we do that is through partnership with community members. Whether you want to be an individual like Dalton who comes in and just helps us run our office. If you want to be a crisis responder, those are crucial people to our team. You don't have to have any special experience or any special professional background to be a crisis responder. You just have to be someone with a compassionate ear and a willingness to respond at a time of need. We have those opportunities available. We also have community outreach opportunities available. If you're a parent of a child, encourage your students, teachers to bring prevention education programming into your schools. If you're a member of a faith-based community, encourage your leaders and your community members at your church to bring in PASAC to do an adult education forum. Knowledge is power, and until we start openly discussing ways that we as a community can respond to this violence will continue to occur. We appreciate all of you joining us today. Look forward to having you at the center. If you're interested in a volunteer opportunity, you simply need to give us a call. Our phone number at the center is area code 270-534-4422. Again, that number is 534-4422, and we look forward to having you at the center as our newest volunteer.